EVs, on the whole, aren't famed for their fun handling. They're fast, sure, but more often than not, they're heavier than their petrol equivalents, and the inevitable trade-off for that is that they can struggle to disguise their weight. But Cupra, a brand whose whole ethos revolves around it being a sporty spin-off from parent company Seat, cannot compromise on this. Its first electric car needs to be as good to drive as its petrol-powered siblings, no questions asked.
And here is that very first electric car. Say hello to the Cupra Born. And if it looks familiar, then you won't be surprised to learn that underneath all this sculpted bodywork and between these four fancy wheels sits the same basic architecture as the Volkswagen ID.3, and that's a car that we will invariably mention once or twice over the next few minutes. Now, it gets the same rear-mounted motors, the same batteries, and similar on-paper straight-line performance, but we're not really interested in that because we know that this thing is going to be plenty quick enough in a straight line. Most EVs are. What we want to know is whether or not Cupra has done enough to justify this car's sporty billing. Should we find out? Let's go.
As mentioned, there'll be a choice of batteries from launch. Full specs are available on the DrivingElectric website, but depending on your wants or needs, you can have one capable of between 217 and 336 miles on a charge. The one we've got here is the mid-range 58 kWh model with a 201 brake horsepower electric motor. Cupra claims 265 miles between charges, and it's this very model that the brand expects to be the big seller when cars start to arrive in early 2022. While the basic shape and size has lots in common with the ID.3, visually it's easy to spot the Born on the road. It's actually 6 centimeters longer and 3 centimeters lower. It instantly looks more dynamic, more aggressive. The logo is unchanged from previous Cupra models, but somehow it looks less Spider-Man in its most recent integration, and the copper bits now synonymous with the brand finish it off nicely too.
In here, it feels a little bit like a kind of ID.3 Plus, if you will. The designers have done just enough to elevate this car above its VW sibling with copper all over the place again to make sure you know you're driving something a little bit different. The VW has been criticised quite frequently for cutting corners when it comes to quality, and that is absolutely not the case in here. There's fabric on the dash, there's textured surfaces over here, and the console in the middle here is kind of raised to give you a bit more of a driver focus. The infotainment system, that is bigger. It just feels nicer and better laid out in here. On the downside though, they do still give you these touch sensitive buttons which you get in the ID.3 all over the infotainment screen and on the steering wheel, which is a bit of a frustration.
Exact prices and specs haven't yet been revealed. That'll come in around December this year, but it's thought that prices should start from around £32,000. That's a few £1,000s more than the ID.3, but crucially means that the entry-level models will fall within the government's current cap for the plug-in car grant. We're told every model will get LED lights, plus a choice of 6 paint colours and 6 wheel options. Inside, the Born gets a bigger screen than the VW, up from 10 inches to 12. Our mid-range model with 201 horsepower does 0-62 in 7.3 seconds, faster than the ID.3, but not really that noticeable in real-world driving. Ultimately though, there is much more to how a car feels than straight-line speed, something that potential Cupra buyers hope will separate the Born from its myriad competitors. The good news is that on a twisty road, a little bit like this one, the Cupra Born handles really well. It feels agile, it feels quick, it feels genuinely enjoyable to drive. You quickly learn to trust it as well because it's got loads of grip, and you use that power to usher you out of corners with remarkable ability. It goes where you want it to go, and thanks to that low centre of gravity, the slightly lower roofline and near perfect weight distribution, body control is really good as well. And all of that doesn't seem to come at the expense of comfort. The Born seems to absorb most of the ruts and bumps that we've come across, and that's a trait that we've also noticed in the ID.3, even on the larger 20-inch wheels. But we will caveat with one thing: we are driving this car on smooth Spanish roads, and they are, well, not exactly what you'd expect to see in the UK. The Cupra comes with speed-sensitive power steering as standard, as well as a slightly lower suspension tune compared with the ID.3. Neither transforms the way this car drives, but certainly when it comes to the steering, there is a little bit more weight. Perhaps disappointingly though, it doesn't translate to a significant uplift in feel or feedback. If you're familiar with the charging options on the Volkswagen, nothing will come as a surprise here. The smaller battery models get 100 kilowatt rapid charging as standard, while the top spec car tops out at 125 kilowatts. However, no matter which one you go for, you're looking at around half an hour to replenish the batteries from 0 to 80% at an appropriate public charger. If you've got a 7 kilowatt wall box, you're looking at just over 7, just over 9, and just over 12 hours to get a full charge in the small, medium, and large batteries, respectively.
One final point to mention is the brakes. There's nothing wrong with them, quite on the contrary actually. The pedal is fine, it's responsive enough when you need it to be. But when it comes to the regen brakes, even when you've got a car in B mode on the gearbox here, there's not enough to offer one pedal driving, which is a bit of a shame. We've come to really enjoy that style of driving. It's fine if you're going through flowing traffic or twisty roads and slowing down for corners, but when you actually need to stop, perhaps in town or what have you have to use the foot brake.
The Cupra gets the same 385 litre boot as the ID.3. It's usable but not spectacular, so those after something big and sporty, and electric, might be better served by the forthcoming Skoda Enyaq VRS. Furthermore, room in the back seats of the Cupra is compromised slightly by that marginally lower roofline, though legroom is still generous, and the flat floor means that those sitting in the back shouldn't feel too shortchanged.
It's easy to dismiss electric cars as being a bit soulless, but the Cupra is proof that with the right ingredients they can be fun as well. To our eyes, it's a better looking car than the ID.3, and you get a much better interior with higher quality materials, but crucially, it feels subtly different to drive. It's got a unique character, and for that reason, we reckon it should be worthy of your consideration.
Head to DrivingElectric.com for all the latest electric and hybrid car advice, news and reviews, and check us out on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Finally, while you're here, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and turn on notifications to ensure you never miss a video.